Testing podium mic. Mic 1. Mic 2. And mic 3.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Jeff Hetrick. I'm the Executive Director of the Ottawa Chamber of Commerce, and I want to welcome everybody to our debate tonight. We have three candidates who have put their hat in the ring to be the next mayor of Ottawa, and we're very proud to have them here tonight. Our format, each of the candidates is going to be given a 2-minute introduction for them to introduce themselves. Then we will have questions drawn at random for the candidates. Every time we draw a question, we will allow the candidates each to have 90 seconds to respond. At the end of the question and answer period, they will also have a 2-minute summary to kind of summarize their candidacy for asking for your vote. So there are a couple of people I would like to thank. I want to thank Central School for letting us use their facilities. We really appreciate that. I want to thank the Chamber has a public policy team. I want to thank them, especially Ron Henson, who is down here keeping time for us. You'll see him. He has a 30-second warning, a 15-second warning, and if you see the big orange flag, that means the candidate's out of time. So thank you, Ron, for taking that hard position. And I would like to introduce our moderator for tonight's debate, Mr. Jay LeSueur of WCMY. Jay, take it away.
Thank you very much. Let's give these three gentlemen a big hand and some encouragement tonight. It takes a lot to stand up and say, I want to serve, and here they are. So let's meet these three gentlemen, and then we'll get into the discussion for the evening, and we'll begin with Dan Awesome.
Do I have to turn this on? Is this on?
No.
I think the line is on. I think you're on now. Yeah.
Good evening. I'm Dan Awesome, Mayor of Ottawa, Illinois, a lifelong resident, elected 3 times as City Commissioner and elected Mayor in 2019. My wife Sue and I have been married 47 years. We have 5 children and 8 grandchildren. I had a great career as an iron worker in Local 386 and was elected business manager in 1994. I also was elected to several other union positions throughout my career. Since 2008, I have served as the Executive Director of the Illinois Valley Contractors Association. I am responsible for public relations, administration, and negotiations of 10 collective bargaining agreements. I'm a trustee on several pension, health insurance, apprentice funds, and I'm on the board of directors of the National Alliance for Fair Contracting. I have over 30 years of experience in collective bargaining, grievance resolution, and labor management cooperation. During my 16 years of public service, I have overseen accounts and finance, water, wastewater, and the parks departments. I have the experience and knowledge of the complex issues of running a city of 18,000 citizens. During the past 4 years, together with the city commissioners and our administration at City Hall, we have accomplished so much. Our economic development team has received over $38 million in grants. The Parks Department has invested over $8 million in our parks and is building a new pool. The Street Department has invested over $8 million as it resurfaced 20 miles of streets, 73 blocks of alleys, and 4 parking lots. I believe that my experience and common sense approach to problem solving helped me get elected in the past, and I hope the citizens will allow me to continue to serve as Ottawa's mayor. Thank you.
Len Newell.
Hello, everyone. My name is Leonard Newell. I'd like to thank the area Chamber of Commerce and Central School for hosting the event. I have a bachelor's degree in political science with a history minor. I have another bachelor's degree in administration of justice. They're both from Southern Illinois University in Carbondale. It felt like simply casting my vote wasn't enough for this election. I decided to run for mayor to get younger generations involved in local government. As they see me involved, I hope they become more interested and engaged in the political process. I think we need more of that as a country and as a city. there were also some other factors that weighed in. A kid I coached left us too soon, a little over a year ago, or not quite a year ago. And I'm sitting there thinking, what could I do to help? I knew he was in a tough spot with some of the things he had going on. And I reached out to him numerous times to try to see if I could do something for him, invite him to come over swimming, stuff like that. And it didn't work out. And I feel like I want to help. I want to try to help and see what I can do to better our community.
Rob Hasty.
Good evening. I'd like to start by thanking the Ottawa Area Chamber of Commerce for hosting the event, the Ottawa Elementary School District 141 for letting us gather here, and the Chamber's Public Policy Committee for organizing this event. I've said for many years that of all the different boards and committees I've been on, the Public Policy Committee was always among my favorites. So I know the work that goes into planning these kinds of events. One of the most important things I've learned since announcing my run for mayor is that this isn't a decision that I made alone. None of us up here did. This is a decision that I made for my parents, for my spouse, for my friends, for my children. And so with that in mind, Mayor Awesome, I'd like to just acknowledge Sue and your children and thank them. Lenny, I'd like to thank your friends and family for their support of you. And I would like to take a moment to thank my wife, Amy, and my daughters, Eleanor and Iris. I also want to thank all of you, both here and watching on YouTube. I want you to know that I appreciate your interest in our city, and I hope to earn your support and your vote. We will be discussing a number of things here tonight, and in the end, it is my plan that you leave here knowing that I have the vision that will allow our city to continue to grow with purpose, and I will do so with true transparency, and I will use our heritage and community so that you have pride not only in where we've been, but also where we're going. Thank you.
Here's the first question of the evening, and Dan Awesome, you'll have the first response to this. As mayor, you would also carry the role of liquor commissioner. Please describe how you would plan to operate as liquor commissioner and how you would handle having to suspend one's liquor license and when you would deem that as necessary. And please describe how you've operated as liquor commissioner.
Well, it's pretty straightforward. There's a number of laws over all the liquor establishments. As far as suspending a license, you cannot suspend a license without having a hearing. There's been a couple instances where we have had hearings, and we prefer not to suspend the last two that I can recall. They hadn't started up their operation within the allotted time, and if you don't start within 90 days, you're required to, surrender that license. In both cases, the entities surrendered the license and got their construction done on their project, and then resubmitted and were able to get their liquor licenses. It doesn't happen that often. I don't know if that answers your question, but there's pretty stringent rules on where they can locate, what they can do, and hours of operation. But if they do something wrong, we do have a process to give them a hearing, and that's it.
Len Newell.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure can. As mayor, you would also carry the role of liquor commissioner. Please describe how you would plan to operate as liquor commissioner and how you would handle having to suspend one's liquor license and when you would deem that as necessary.
I would follow the process that's laid out and treat everyone equal. And if they were doing something that they were not supposed to be doing, then I guess you would have to have your hearing or your due process to see where you were going to move forward with it. I don't believe anybody that's in a business like that is going to be trying to do anything that would take their license away. So I would feel like it's probably not going to be a huge problem. But if something like that was to come up, it probably is a pretty big problem, because that means they're probably serving underage kids or serving liquor that they're not supposed to be serving. I mean, I guess it could be many number of things. And I guess it would just depend on the exact situation that you were involved with each establishment. But I think if you just treat all of them fairly and try to be honest with them about what's going on, I would feel like if it was anything that was so out of line, I mean, you would just have to follow the process, whatever the law says. Good.
Rob Hasty.
Yeah, like the mayor said, there is a number of ordinances and laws that are in place. And I think what's important about our community is, no matter of any of the people that are sitting up here or the other four commissioners, we want businesses in town to grow. We want everyone to be successful. And so I think it's unfair to assume that there would be any kind of agenda out to get any particular business or another. In reality, it's a matter of following the rules. And if you don't like the rules, there's also a process to change the rules. And that would have to be addressed at that time. But at the end of the day, it simply comes down to making sure that you're adhering to the rules that are in place.
Very good. Anybody else want to touch on this one at all? Another response or anything? Okay. If you would, the three of you, please speak into your microphone, and it'll bend and maneuver a little bit for you if you want to get it closer to your mouth. Question number 2, and Len Newell, you'll have the first response on this one. Hypothetical situation. The governor of Illinois shuts down restaurants from indoor dining due to a pandemic similar to COVID. Other neighboring communities' administrations allow their restaurants and bars to continue to operate and conduct business indoors. Do you abide by the governor's emergency order and actively enforce through the local police department until it is lifted? Do you abide by the emergency order only until relief fund grants and monies come through and then no longer actively enforce the order? Or do you not enforce it at all, as you either don't believe in it or don't think it is within the authority of our governor?
So you're talking another pandemic?
Or some kind of situation similar.
Well, if it's another pandemic like the one we had, and you're trying to protect kids and the elderly, if it's not, what was the word they called? Essential. If it's not essential, I guess you're not going to be open. So I guess that's where I stand on that.
Rob Hasty?
Well, it's certainly a loaded question, but at the end of the day, I think it's important that you use whatever information is at hand at the time to make the best decisions for not only your community, but for other communities as well. And if you're listening to that information and you're bringing in all of the experts to it, I think it's important that you follow through and make sure that there's a consistent plan, both for the people that you're trying to help protect and also for, the larger sense of community of our state. I understand with businesses, I myself am a business owner. My wife is a business owner. We had employees. There are a lot of tough decisions that have to be made in those situations, but at the end of the day, I think that's a moment when people need to come together and not try to divide and try to do what's best for the community. And if information changes, then there's no problem with us changing with it.
Dan Awesome.
Well, I think first off, every elected official, they swear an oath of office. And that oath usually says you're going to uphold the laws of the city, the state, and the United States. I don't really think we have the opportunity to decide which ones we're going to enforce and which ones not. When the mandates came out, we had a number of meetings with our city council. I can tell you that at the beginning of the pandemic, myself, our city attorney, the police chief, and the public works director were doing phone calls every morning, 7 days a week, in order to try to keep up with the changing laws and what the regulations are and what the rules. And I understand everybody's frustration, but I think it was the unknown that everybody was just, we didn't know what to do. But as far as whether or not we should enforce or not enforce the mandates, I really don't think we have that option. And it is frustrating when you have other government agencies that don't follow it, but you know, we did the best we could under the circumstances.
Anybody else want to chime in any more on this one? All right, let's move on to another one. Rob Hasty, you get the first crack at this one. There have been several proposals to develop the block of Jackson Street just to the south of Washington Park. What would you like to see developed there, if anything at all? And do you anticipate approving any changes to Jackson Street in its structure or in its parking arrangement?
I've always liked that initial idea of extending Washington Park and having the shops and community and more restaurants there. I know that one of the plans had where the road could still be open to the public while easily closing it when there's events and making it so that it's less of a risk for someone driving on the road when they're not supposed to. I think that would probably be the best option. At this, I mean, there's so much creativity in different urban communities now with ways that you could make a property multifunctional. And so I would be all in favor of adding as much space as we can for entertainment and also making it convertible in need be if we need to use it for access for roads or different things of that nature. So at the end of the day, it would definitely be something that I would encourage because we need to be further building on tourism, and by making an environment in our downtown that is more appealing, then that's just going to help.
Dan Awesome.
There's been a number of plans for Jackson Street. I've liked most of them. I think that even the changes by the owners of the adjacent property have changed their plans a few times. But we are still prepared we've put money in the budget to repair the alleys. And our plans, what we'd like to see is to do similar to what we did on Court Street, eliminate the parking on the south side of Jackson Street, and probably eliminate the turn lane so that we have through traffic. And until there is a bigger plan than that, we would just open up that space for retail use and outside dining.
Len Newell.
Well, it's a street, and I don't believe in changing the street. I believe it's everybody's street. I believe we need the parking. We shouldn't be taking away more parking. And with some of the plans that they want to use, I don't see why they need the street and the sidewalk and all that anyway. I think the last thing we want to do is take away more parking spots because we already have a parking issue downtown. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, in my opinion, on the parking. So I say it stands pat how it is. Lots of parking spots there, a street that everyone gets to use. And I don't think extending the park out into the road would make the park any better. I think it's a great park how it is. I'm good.
Anything else from anybody? Okay. Dan, the next question comes to you first. What are your plans for consistent conflict of interest language in all contracts approved by the City of Ottawa for services contracted out? And if already in office, has consistent conflict of interest language been in all contracts adopted by the City Council? And secondly, do you believe conflict of interest language is necessary on all City of Ottawa contracts? Why or why not?
I'm not really sure where you're going with on this question, but as far as conflicts of interest, I know that there's times when we vote on things. Um, I know recently, I think Commissioner Gainier abstained a vote because of some relative that was involved in whatever the issue was we were adopting. But there are stated laws for conflicts of interest, and there's rules and regulations to avoid them. I don't believe that we have any issues with conflicts of interest, and if someone thinks there are a conflict, they certainly should bring it up to the city or the authorities if they think there's a problem. But I just wish whoever sent the question in would have been a little bit more clear what they're trying to find out. But we do follow the rules.
Lynn Newell.
So when I started to be a candidate for mayor, there's a guy that I went to high school with who also works for the city, and people were talking about a conflict of interest there. And I was like, I don't see it. I think if somebody wants to be a city employee and also be a commissioner, I think that's a good thing, because that means they really care about the city enough to actually get involved and try to fix things. I believe, on the other hand, that was the least amount of conflict interest in other issues that I feel like are kind of going on, but I don't know the ins and outs of all of it. But I just thought it was unusual that people were bringing up that conflict of interest when there are other issues that seem to be a lot more relevant to a actual conflict of interest than a guy running for commissioner who works for the city.
Rob Hasty.
Yeah, my thought on that is, even if no laws are being broken, or if there's no, if the rules are being followed, sometimes there's a matter of optics. And just to give everyone a quick example, the mayor is the director of the Illinois Valley Contractors Association, and he has duties as that director. Last fall, when the pool was being voted on, there was a discussion about the fact that the pool is supposed to cost $5 million. They went out to bid, and when the bid came back, it was at $6.5 million. And Vissering is who put in that bid. And there's a representative from Vissering Construction on the board of the Illinois Valley Contractors Association. So the paper, the Times, said that other options were given for things that could happen. There could have been, the time frame could have been extended, or a number of other things. Instead, they went ahead and made the vote. And they had the right to do so. But in my opinion, not only should the mayor have abstained from that vote, knowing the fact that that was the only one, but he made the motion for it. And so from that token, even if it's not illegal, I do think that there's an optics problem when decisions like that are being made.
Anything else anybody wants to say?
I'd like to comment on that, on Rob's point. It's true the YMCA did come in over budget, and I think everybody's thrilled to see that the YMCA is under construction. And I believe when they first went out, they were about $4 million over budget. Yet the board still chose to move forward and go with the YMCA, which I think is a great project. As far as the school or the swimming pool, the citizens spoke at the meeting. They wanted a pool. Prices were high. We only got one bidder. We did reach out to other pool contractors, and they were all busy up in the northern part of the state, and they weren't interested in coming down. Bringing up the fact that I was on the Illinois Valley Contractors, I've been on the contractors board since 2008, and almost all the contractors that do work for the city are members of the association. That's who we represent, as the contractors, and the contractors in the area do the work for the city. I don't feel that there's any conflict at all.
Lynn Newell, do you want to chime in here?
I don't know if conflict of interest is the proper terminology. I think it might be more of an ethical issue than just conflict of interest. And I also feel it to be weird that we only had one bid on an $8 million project. I mean, I don't see why we can't find more companies to bid a project of that size, but whatever.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to clarify that in no way do I mean that we should not be taking these bids from whatever contractors bring them in. I'm thankful for the union and the contractors that we have in our community. Again, though, I think that there's just a perceived optics problem when someone is able to make decisions on both sides of the fence. And we have a mayor and 4 commissioners. If that's the best bid, and if that's the situation that the best for the city, just for appearance's sake, there'd be no problems with the person who does have that another side of the coin to be able to abstain from that vote. It could, if it's what the city wants, if it's what the people want, the vote would have still went through. So whether or not it's a conflict of interest or not, it's, in my opinion, it's still something that should be pointed out.
Okay, let's move on to another question. And Len Newell, you'll have the first crack at this one. The city of Ottawa has taken on additional bond sales and long-term debt. What are your views on how to continue payments on bonds, and what would your future idea of fiscal responsibility look like?
Well, my opinion on debt is try to pay it off as soon as possible. Just for instance, I had a 30-year mortgage on my house and I paid it off in about 17 years. So I feel like interest is your enemy, no matter if you're a guy like me who's trying to get by on like 40 grand a year, or a city that has a budget of millions of dollars. I try to pay for things. For instance, if I charge up my credit card, I pay it off at the end of the month. I understand sometimes things come up and you can't do that, but I believe in fiscal responsibility and trying to save money for a rainy day and not just go out and spend. So my opinion on any of that would be to try to be in a position where you have a balanced budget for the city, because taxes are already out of control and I don't really want to be digging into people's pockets for more money for things that we could be more efficient with, or however we can try to save the community money.
Rob Hasty?
I do think that currently our city council has a rush to spend. We are well over, in the last 4 years, $20 million in bonds, which is more than bonds that were taken out in the previous 8 to 12 years. So, you know, it's nice to have pools. It's nice to have that improved infrastructure. But at the end of the day, that's a debt that's sitting on all of our backs. And if it were me, I would like to find better solutions in order for us to be a little bit more prudent with our money. And that's basically, I would probably just add the fact that I think we can move forward with the money that we have, and the $12 each month that we have with our water bills, to make sure that we can still get projects done without putting so much debt on our children's and grandchildren.
Dan Awesome.
All right. The last bond rating that the city had by the 2 major rating agencies was AA by Standard & Poor and A3 by Moody's. The fiscal responsibility by the city is reflected in those grades is important because it allows us to borrow money at a lower interest rate. Now, the city was borrowing for desired improvements a little more aggressively than in the past, simply because the interest rates were so low. Rob brings up the $12 a month for the water. That's actually for the stormwater long-term control plan. That plan is a long-term plan that's supposed to cost $30 million. Every year, the cost of wages go up and the cost of materials go up. And by us bonding for that, it allows us to buy the materials this year at a cheaper rate. So we did bond, I believe, for $8 or $10 million in order to do those projects. And I think the council all agreed that the opportunities were low. Len mentioned that, he paid off his house in 17 years. People mortgage their big expenditures. When we decided we needed a new fire truck, a tower truck that lasts 25 years, we financed it for 20 years. So I think we have been fiscally responsible. We have increased the debt, though.
Anybody else want to chime in on this? We'll move on.
Sometimes when you have things like fire trucks and other things, you have to pick the right window to flip them for a new fire truck or whatever you're talking about. There's usually a right time to move on something and a right time not to. In the past few years, I've seen, just where I work, the cost of materials has tripled. So I don't know that right now is the best time to be just going hog wild, doing all kinds of things to improve infrastructure and other things. I know some things need to be done, but right now isn't the best time to go build a brand new house, because you can find a house that somebody has that's been built previously and you can buy it at a better deal than what it would cost per square foot to build one right now. So I think everything is a little different depending on what you're dealing with. I think part of all of it is just being smart and knowing the right time to do certain things. And obviously in a city, there's always something coming up that probably needs to be addressed.
Anybody else want to say anything? We'll move on to another question. And Rob Hasty, you have the first take on this one. The I&M Canal rewatering has gone way over initial and subsequent budgets. Will more public taxpayer money be used to improve the conditions of this project under your administration? And secondly, how do you see this project helping with tourism under your administration? And how do you plan to handle any complaints from residents who are neighbors to the canal?
Okay, well, I'm a member of a lot of different boards and committees that have all donated money to the I&M Canal, going back 5 years ago when the plan first started getting some steam behind it. And it is something that I believed in then. It is something that I believe in now. However, I do think that there needs to be an immediate pause as opposed to just trying to make fixes. I think this is a situation now where we need to have a plan, not just a plan to put water in it. We need to have a complete plan to know what it's going to be used for. Too often in our community, we are making things and building things without the plan of what it's going to be once it's done. And I think we need to do that with the canal to make sure that once it has water in it, there are other amenities that will make it worthwhile for both us and for tourists. Originally, there were ideas of antique lights over the bridges on Columbus and LaSalle. There was going to be a welcome sign welcoming you to historic downtown. There was going to be rentals for paddle boats. None of that has been talked about since the water was put in the canal. We've just been fixing problems with the canal. So what I would like to see is that we pause any fixing of the canal, make sure that we have a plan as to what we're going to do with it, and then let's fix it right finally.
Dan Awesome.
So the canal rewatering project, in my opinion, was a failed experiment. There was poor planning, no overall master plan. The rewatering plan also called for stocking the canal with fish, but when the state biologist come up, he said the water's too shallow, the fish can't survive in the winter, and they can't survive in the summer. DNR does not allow us to put any chemicals at all into the canal. We have problems with weeds, algae, mosquitoes, and we can't put any chemicals in at all. So anyone who's had a pond or a pool, if you stop circulating the water or stop putting chemicals in, it gets green pretty quick. It doesn't look bad now with the 1 foot of water in it because the weather's cool. I didn't know that we were having a canal event in July, but Commissioner Eichelkraut said that there's one being planned. I think probably a better solution until we can find out from some experts on what to do would be to keep it drained, fill it up for a couple of weeks when there's going to be an event, and then drain it back down. I'd rather concentrate more on the towpath and get biking and cycling from Marseilles to Utica.
Lynn Newell?
So the I&M Canal is it's an unfunded national park. It's taken care of by the Illinois Department of Natural Resources, and I don't believe that they have the manpower or the money to take care of it. I don't believe putting good money at a bad idea, because I live over on the east side and it's West Nile Central anywhere near the canal from the aqueduct going east. And none of these plans do anything to address any of that, which makes zero sense to me. You have the issue of circulating the water. Well, you're trying to put water in like 3 blocks of a canal, and the canal was built in a way where there was water being pumped and funneled all over the place. It's just a bad idea. The water that they're taking out of the river has too much nitrogen in it from runoff of the farm fields. You pump that into the canal, and then it turns to algae because you can't circulate it enough. Then you could dig a well, pump water out of that well, then you're wasting good water, which is a resource that I think someday we're going to wish we weren't wasting so much of it. I think no one in their right mind is going to kayak or canoe 3 blocks in the canal. I saw nobody do it. I worked right next to it. So I think it's a waste of money.
Anybody else have any more on this, or should we
Well,
move
I'll
on?
just point out, I mean, I don't disagree at all with Lenny, but it's actually 8 blocks. But I still don't think people are going to come and canoe and kayak.
That's not going to make much of a difference. You're right.
All right, let's move on to another question. Dan Awesome, you have the first take on this one. It's a question. What are your plans to have downtown residential tenants and businesses coexist cohesively? Are noise complaints and decibel levels only enforced when a complaint is called in to the police department? How does the police department handle habitual complaints from one residential tenant if the police department has responded multiple times to these complaints before and concluded that the business is operating within the definition of the city ordinance?
Well, I think downtown residential is going to grow. We've been fortunate to get a RISE grant to do research on what's the best way to make that happen, and it's hopefully going to address a lot of the issues. I know there's concern about the buildings that have 2nd and 3rd floors, how you're going to have access to them. I know the other issue we're going to have to talk about is parking, but as far as the noise complaints, I think when people go downtown. It's no different than the people that buy a house next to the railroad track. The train's going to blow its whistle when it comes by. You move downtown, you may have some issues where it's going to be noisy on occasion, but I'm, as mayor, the police department doesn't call me and let me know every time they get a call to go somewhere. And I know that there were some issues in the past with some noise complaints. We addressed them. We purchased decimeters, and I don't believe that we've had much of a problem. I think a little bit of cooperation between the tenants and the businesses would go a long way. Thank you.
Lynn Newell.
So I've lived here my whole life. We're right on two rivers. Water, the sound travels up and down the rivers. I don't know how you're really going to do anything about the sound to make everybody downtown happy. My opinion is, if you want it quiet, you shouldn't be living downtown because it's a city and it's noisy. I'm pro-business. I like music. I think they should be able to play music past 10 o'clock or whatever their time frame is. We're talking about possibly bringing in an amphitheater that's going to be hopefully getting some decent acts. You're not going to want to shut that stuff down. And I think we have a lot of musical talent in the area. I think we could almost be more like a little Nashville, being so close to the city and the suburbs. We could do so much more with the musicians in the area and also catching them coming through the area because we're in such a strategic location. I think we should be more pro-business and more pro-music and try to hit it out of the park instead of trying to complain about this is loud and that's loud. It's like, yeah, it's music. It's going to be loud.
Rob Hasty.
Well, I actually am a downtown resident, so I did not write the question. I want to clarify that. And there are ordinances in place, and I think it's fair to make sure that all the business owners are following the ordinance that are in place. There are a number of businesses downtown who have live music. We don't get complaints from all of them. There's a lot of different ways in this day and age the ways that you can use technology. And if the music is so loud, and it's important for it to be loud because that's what's going to bring people into your bar, you're probably making enough money where you can use some of that technology to make a better sound so people can hear the music without the people on the south side having to hear it as well. I don't think that that's out of line. If you look at things like Ravinia, that's a concert venue in the middle of a neighborhood. And they're able to do so because of the technology that they have and how that music travels. So we're able to do both. But in the meantime, I think what's important is that there are ordinances in place. And if people are violating them, we need to follow laws. Mayor Awesome said it earlier tonight. Laws are in place. If we pick and choose, then what's the point? So from that point of view, I think we can live together. I do currently live with them, but I think it needs to be fair for everyone involved.
Anybody else want to say anything on this?
Well,
Lynn?
I wasn't saying to break any laws or not follow the restrictions of whatever ordinances we have. All I'm trying to say is we could have a party on Bulls Island right now in the summer, and you're going to hear it from Bulls Island all the way to Marseilles, all the way down to Utica, or at least the Starved Rock Yacht Club halfway to Utica, because sound travels down our rivers. And I don't think you have any ordinance on Bulls Island. So I think if we want to work with our businesses in the downtown area, I think that you want to be pro music, pro comedy, pro whatever works without being totally obnoxious about it.
Let's move on to another question. And Len Newell, you have the first take on this one. The current administration has outsourced a number of jobs that have traditionally been done by city personnel, including engineering, special events, public works, and computer technology management. Do you think outsourcing this has been a benefit to taxpayers and the daily operations of the city? Or do you think there are better ways to be physically responsible to the taxpayer?
I think you want to be responsible to the taxpayers, but you also want to maintain a healthy working relationship with your city employees. I think when you start taking away their work, you're cutting into an area where they feel like you don't appreciate them. My vision of the city is I want to create more jobs for more city employees where you would bring in more revenue, where it would be easily justified to have them and pay for them. If you're gonna take out and give away certain jobs in this area and certain jobs over here in this area, eventually, how are you going to pay for the pensions and the health care and all them things? So you still need your strong workforce, and you have to be smart about how you're, doing that. I feel like some people are pro-union until it's a certain thing. Like you got to have your mayor hat, and then you got to have your construction hat, your contractor hat. You gotta walk the line. Like I'm a baseball coach. I want everybody to be on the same team working for the city, all working for the same goals together, working for the same vision.
Rob Hasty?
When it comes to city workers, I don't think that we should ever be taking any job away from them that they are doing already and doing a good job at doing it. To outsource things, I think undercuts the morale of our city and the pride that we have for it. When it comes to events, which was another part of that question, I think it's clear that the current structure hasn't worked. Winefest was not what Winefest was 2 years ago or 5 years ago. And a lot of that had to do with the lack of partnership of all the different entities, the city, the Ottawa Visitor Center, the Chamber of Commerce. And so what I would like to see moving forward is reforming the relationships so people have defined roles. The city knows what their role is in promoting events. The Ottawa Visitor Center knows what their role is in promoting events, and the Chamber knows what their role is in providing events. And I think by doing that, we can all work together and make sure that things are being accomplished like they had been in the past.
Dan Awesome?
Okay, you've got a lot of questions here in this 90 seconds. On the special events, shortly after I got elected, we had a town meeting, and we went through all the events and pointed out how much money the city was losing on the Kris Kringle event, the Wine Fest. The city was not very good at doing the events. So we decided to put it out there and let others come in and manage these events. They had some skin in the game. There was an incentive for them to make a little money. So I think the Kris Kringle market turned out fantastic. The Wine Fest was good, but as soon as we said that the city wasn't going to be paying for the $10,000 tent, the following year, the wine groups, they decided they didn't need a tent. So I want to get to the public works part of it. The city of Ottawa has 180 dedicated employees that serve our citizens. Our duty is to serve the citizens and taxpayers of Ottawa in the most efficient manner possible. As the city continues to grow, there are times when we enlist the services of local family-run businesses to assist with city operations. At no time has the city ever contemplated or discussed reducing the workforce. The issue with the AFSCME workers complaining about us contracting out, it didn't affect anybody. They didn't lose any work. We didn't lay anybody off. They didn't lose any pay. And when we went to arbitration, the arbitrator reaffirmed the city, this is the language in the contract, the city has the absolute right to contract out. And that's what we did. We didn't do it to penalize them. We did it because we could get the grass mowed at a lower price than what we're paying, and we're going to use those city workers to cut trees and do more highly skilled jobs.
Lynn, Rob, either one of you want to come in on this some more?
Yeah, so I appreciate that idea. However, I go back to just morale. And it's clear that if you're constantly looking around, looking behind your back, trying to make sure that you're doing what needs to be done in order for you not to fall into another hole, it makes it really hard to want to get up every day and do your job. I believe that the people that work for our city are good people. I think that they're doing a good job and that they should continue to be supported whenever it makes sense to do so. So the idea of saving a little bit of money, mowing grass or doing something like that, I think is a far cry from, the water meter vote that you guys took 2 years ago, or some of the other things that have happened.
Anything more on this one? Lynn, you want to say something?
The thing I don't really understand about the Kris Kringle market is somebody else is running it for the city, but I see all the city workers putting up and tearing down all the huts all over the place. Like, I don't understand what we're actually getting out of it as a community besides just the festival. Like,
well, it draws thousands of people to town. The vendors pay the city a fee to have those huts put up and taken down.
But do we get any of the money from the fee? Or are we just getting
They
what?
pay the fee to us.
Oh, okay. That's not what I heard. That's fine.
The one other thing I'd like to mention that nobody got to it, but they mentioned engineering. The city in 2014, under Mayor Eschbach, hired Tom Duttlinger's firm to be the assistant engineer. The city has never had any equipment, no blueprint printers, no scanners, no equipment. But at 2013, we had 2 city engineers that we paid, plus their benefits, and we contracted out $3 million in engineering services. So in 2014, we hired a consultant to come on, and even if you look back in history, before Bill Kraus, Renwick Engineering was the city engineer. So it's not uncommon for those positions to be contracted out.
Rob?
The comment I'd like to make about that is that may be true, but again, when looking at the optics of a city, I think it's difficult to know that your public works manager who finds the work to be done is then handing that off to a city engineer who's the same person who's then handing that off to his engineering firm without any checks or balances in place to make sure that the right jobs are being decided for the right amount of money. Again, it's just a matter of how that's perceived from the community. And I don't understand why there wouldn't be some kind of a check and balance, someone who can look at something from a third point of view and say, is that the right thing that's being done?
Well, I will say when every 4 years when the new council gets seated, we do all the appointments of the new staff. When I started in 2019, we eliminated, or we did not renew contracts for 4 individuals who all lived outside of town. And we, moved Dave Noble to Economic Development, Tom Duttlinger to Public Works. The former Public Works Director was making $96,000 a year, and the engineer was at $108,000. Overall, we saved $53,000 by replacing those 4 people with 4 people that lived in Ottawa. So I'm not sure there was anything underhanded there. The other thing I'd like to mention is, as far as for the concerns with AFSCME and the morale of the union, I've been on the city council since 2007, and I participated in every single negotiations for the firemen, the policemen, and the AFSCME union. I'm still the same person. We're not trying to do anything different than we've done in the past. The only thing that changed is a new president for the local that wants to reinterpret what the language says in the agreement.
All right, let's move on to another question. And Rob Hasty, you'll have the first take on this one. Tourism is a big part of the success of our community. With that being said, the funding of the Ottawa Visitor Center has been cut over $60,000 by the city over many years. What is your position on the importance of the OVC to the city economy? And what would be your continued vision for the development of tourism locally?
So I think the riverfront is going to be very important for the future of our tourism in our town. And when looking at what the Ottawa Visitor Center is supposed to be providing for us, according to their bylaws, they're supposed to be 50 miles or further out. Instead, as of late, what they've been doing is Smoketoberfest and kickball tournaments and things of that nature. I'd like to get back to the fact that we can have branding that our Ottawa Visitor Center is doing instead of all Buffalo, no bull, which was 5-6 years ago, and it's still on our billboards. And it's true that they've taken $60,000 away from that organization. So I would be curious to know where that money has since went. If we're to build that amphitheater, if we have that riverfront, it's going to take a lot of marketing to get people to come down to that. And so what I would like to do is slightly change the focus of the Ottawa Visitor Center to actually make them the portal that is out, getting the advertisement, doing the marketing, booking the entertainment, and becoming the system for our city that's going to bring that riverfront alive.
Dan Awesome.
The city of Ottawa has been recognized as a tourist destination by several magazines. We continue to expand our special events in order to draw people into town. Rob mentioned the Smoketoberfest. I was very much involved in that, and there were people from all over the state that participated in that. As far as the $60,000 cut, I don't know if anybody remembers when COVID was around, but there was no hotel motel money. So yes, their budget was cut, but the Visitor Center presents a budget to the City Council each year and asks for what they want to do, and we meet with them, and typically we give them what they're asking for. So if this is the first I've heard that there was a concern that their budget had been cut, it was cut because of the revenue from the hotel motel decreased almost to nothing. But we can certainly do that. The Ottawa Visitor Center, I think, does a great job of marketing Ottawa. They were just up at the Blackhawks game when the Blackhawks played the Ottawa Senators, and we got a lot of plug, and there was people contacting the Visitor Center the next day trying to book trips and find out more about what's there to do in the Ottawa area. Thank you.
Lynn Newell.
Tourism is a good thing for our community. It creates jobs and strengthens our local economy. I think we're in a very strategic location where we could be funneling people through Ottawa, through Naplate, through DeBennett Road to Starved Rock. We could also take them through town, across the bridge, and across 71 to Starved Rock. I don't know that we're tapping into that as much as we should be. I take both of them rides several times a week to go to IV to coach baseball, and they're both great rides. And it seems like everybody thinks the only way they can get to Starved Rock is through Utica. So there's definitely an angle there where we could bring in some more people through town that way. I used to have Blackhawks tickets. I got rid of them because they're terrible. And they also were trying to rip me off. They wanted me to pay the same price that I could get a Stanley Cup Finals ticket for. And they wanted to give me concession credit, which anybody that knows anything about going to a game like that, it's super inflated prices at the concessions. And I haven't watched a game because I'll probably never go there again to the UC, but there couldn't have been that many people at the United Center that are looking to come to Ottawa because nobody's there.
Let me clarify. The ads were on WGN radio.
The ads could be on the radio, but nobody's listening to the radio because they're terrible.
My turn.
No comment. You want to move on to another question?
I'm ready.
Dan Awesome, you'll have the first take on this one. This is rather lengthy. Tax increment financing districts are established for 23 years when originally approved by all taxing bodies. At the end of the time period, the city has been requesting all taxing bodies to approve TIF district extensions for another 12 years. Are you concerned, as an elected official or as a candidate, that these districts and extensions unfairly place too much of the property tax burden on our property owners, especially for our local school districts? In addition, how do you properly balance the need for TIF districts to attract new business and revitalize blighted areas with the needs of our public school system, especially when these districts can tie up tax revenue for 35 years with extensions?
Well, first off, the extensions are not automatic. They don't include all the property that's in the TIF. Typically, what you'll do on an extension is the property that has not been developed and never. The whole idea of the TIF is to get people to develop in a blighted area. So the taxes that were paid prior to the development, that's what everybody splits up. The city typically makes the schools not completely whole, but we try to take care of them. But when it goes to the extensions, they get all the money that they have coming to them. We no longer get the money on those properties. The only parts that would continue to get additional TIF benefits would be the properties that had not yet been developed. The extensions have to get approved by the state. It's not automatic. We do think that it's a very useful tool for economic development. And I was at a presentation out at Heritage Harbor where there was a retired mayor that was sitting there. I can't remember what city he was from, but people in the audience were questioning because they pay a lot of taxes and they want to know about the TIFs. And the former mayor said, if it weren't for TIFs, we would have never met each other, which he has the ability to say that because he's lived it. But TIFs are good for economic development and they're good for the schools.
Lynn?
TIF districts, if they're used right, are a good tool for government. I think when you have an area that you want to develop and you can use a TIF to enhance the development and try to speed it up, it's a good thing. But if you have an area that the TIF doesn't really work in, is another 12 years or 10 years going to make it better? I don't know. I think what needs to be done in a situation like that is you just have to be smart with how you're trying to approach it. Maybe the TIF is a good thing, but maybe we have too many TIF districts, or we didn't handle the TIF district in the way that we should have. I mean, I think it's a tool that we want to use as a city, but it's possible that we want to relook at how we do them, because I know there are several in town and I don't know if they're super successful or not, because I mean, I've been living here since I got out of college and it's like we haven't really brought in any, knock it out of the park company that brings in a bunch of good jobs and good things to the community. So it is what it is. I mean, it's a good idea to try to build up an area, but I don't think they always work.
Rob Hasty?
We do have a number of TIF districts in Ottawa. The only one that is coming up within the next 4 years is the industrial park. And knowing what is that every community along I-80 and every industrial park along I-80 all has TIF districts. In that scenario, I don't think anyone would agree that we would want to get rid of that one. Otherwise, we're not going to be competitive with the communities up and down 80. When it comes to the other ones, I think it can be a case-by-case scenario. I know the downtown TIF district would be a perfect example of that currently. A lot of the rehabilitation that's happening, these buildings aren't being used in a way where they would want to take advantage of the TIF district. So that would just be one scenario. I know not all of them have, but some of them, it would be worth looking at. By and large, though, I do think that TIFs are important, and I understand the balance and the burden that it put on the other taxpayers. But if you don't have that development, then there's not going to be anything to come back to. So we need to move forward with them when we can.
Anybody else want to chime in on this one? Otherwise, we'll move on. Dan, you got
I was just going to make a comment that, just for everyone's information, that when these developers come in, a lot of times we're competing with other communities that are not in the state of Illinois. So you got to get over that hurdle that there's a stigma that people may not want to come to Illinois in the first place. And if you don't have some incentives to give them a reason to locate in your area, you're not going to get it. And I know anybody that's worked on economic development, you might do 100 presentations or 1,000 presentations before you get one that agrees to sign. It's very complicated, and TIFs are necessary in order to give the incentives to these developers.
anything else on this one? All right, we'll move on to another question. Len, you have the first take on this. Please describe when you believe emergency bidding should be used by the city, and how will it be used if you're elected?
Emergency bidding would be something that would be for like an act of God, a fire, a flood, circumstances that are out of our control that we need to address in a speedy manner. I think anytime we're going to be using taxpayers' money, it should go through the regular process of the council and the mayor, unless it is just simply an emergency.
Rob Hasty?
I believe the question is probably pretty clear in regards to Allen Park. And in that regards, there's definitely questions that could be played. And the fact that everyone who's lived in our community knows that Allen Park has been and that wall has been in disrepair for a number of years. To make a state of emergency on it, and then for it to wait 3, 6, 7 months, however long it took in order for there to be work done, does draw into question whether or not that was a properly used emergency. In my opinion, I think it's pretty clear when it's going to be an emergency. If there's someone whose life, if there's life in danger or property where there needs to be immediate action taken, then obviously you need to do your due diligence to make sure that you're getting people out there to work. But whenever you have a project that's been sitting around for a number of years and then you declare it emergency and then take a couple months to shore up that emergency, it's obvious why people are going to ask questions about that.
Dan Awesome?
Well, I'm glad you brought this up. There is no such thing as emergency bidding. The municipal code covers bid exemptions, which allows for exempting competitive bidding for several reasons, including if items are only available from a single source or a dual source, and also that with a 2/3 vote of the council, the city may waive competitive bidding for any contract. The contractor hired at Allen Park had a very large quantity of broken up concrete. In Ottawa, they have a crusher on the north side of Ottawa. The quote we received was 20% under the engineer's estimate, and so we voted to waive the bidding requirements and grant that contract. The only thing that came up about emergency, if you go back and watch the video, it's January 18th, 2022. Commissioner Less mentioned that he didn't feel it was an emergency, but at no time was when the quote was put on the council floor, did anybody say anything about emergency? It was simply to accept the quote and waive the competitive bidding. And that's what we did, and completely legal.
Anybody else have a take on this one at all? No? All right. Let's move on to another question. And Rob Hasty, you'll have the first take on this one. This one's rather lengthy.
They've all been. That's what we like. When you can't remember it.
We saw the popular Third Friday downtown market reduced from 6 to 3 times a year last summer. We also saw the Christmas parade 2 years ago be an exclusive invite-only event to participate. Many other communities regularly shut down roads for street parties and festivals on an ongoing basis during the warm months. Please describe how and why these decisions have been made, if you're in office now, and how these types of requests and events are to be handled in your administration if you're elected as mayor. And finally, should we be charging a special event for the police, fire, city employees' time when other municipalities sometimes charge nothing at all?
Also, Dan, I did not write this question either. I think to tackle some of those parts, the first one being that I asked last fall of the other people who had different organizations, Third Friday being one of them, if whether or not they had been charged for their activity, and they said that they had not. I can tell you that being the president of Run Starve Rock Country, the Starve Rock Country Marathon has paid the city every year except for one for the services that they provide for us. I do understand that there's a cost to that, and I do not disagree with making some payment if that's what needs to have happen, but it needs to be consistent across the board with every organization. But furthermore, in regards to shutting the streets down, I know in the post-city council meeting radio interview, Mayor Awesome had indicated that by closing streets, it can lead to Pandora's box. And I disagree with that. I think we can close streets. We can close as many streets that people need to have closed for festivals. The successful festivals will continue to happen. The other ones will not. But at the end of the day, by having these organic, natural street fairs, it's clear it brings people into our town, and it's something that we need to be celebrating. And I think we need to absolutely go back to 6 of those Third Fridays. And I'm in favor of maybe having a couple in the different neighborhoods on the south side and over on the west side as well.
Dan Awesome.
All of the special events requests go into our special events coordinator, which is a live person at City Hall. And then those are sent out to a larger group, myself, the police chief, the public works director, in order to look at how we're going to manage these events. Last year, it was determined that they didn't want to expand closing down streets. The police chief had concerns about that. We do have a tremendous amount of open space available for the city We could do all kinds of festivals. And I think we agreed that we didn't want to start the trend of just closing down every street when any time somebody wants to have an event. We did work with Amanda and came with 3. And I believe I just saw the email come through today where she again is applying for 3 times to close the street. As far as the marathon started a long time ago, and they use an awful lot of our police and fire department resources. It's typically all overtime. It costs a lot of money. And when they started the marathon under Mayor Eschbach's administration, I believe that was the agreement that they reimbursed the city for the cost of those first responders. I'm not sure that happens at all the events, but I know that on the marathon in particular, it's a very large cost, and they do end up reimbursing the city for those costs.
Lynn?
I think the events in the park are good. Brings in tourists, brings in people from surrounding areas. I think it's a no-brainer to do it. I actually think that the thing on Madison Street would be cool. I think you could maybe have like a open house at City Hall. I think we need to try to get more involvement from some of these people and things. And I think if you have a open door policy to man up there and talk to some of them, I think it would be a good thing. I'm not really afraid to shut down streets at certain times. I think it's been going on for years around here. I know I've had to drive around stuff. I mean, it's just what you do. I think if we're benefiting from the culture of it and the benefits from any of that stuff for the city and the citizens, I think it's something that you can't replace without doing it. I think it's just something that helps our community.
Rob, you want to chime in on?
Yeah, I just want to clarify that in no way was I complaining in regards to what the marathon pays. We will gladly pay that every year. What I'm saying is that there should be, that when any organization approaches the city's response should be, yes, how do we make it work? Not saying no. That as long as, if somebody can come to the table and say, this is what we want to do, and the city responds back with, this is what it's going to cost you, then it's up to that organization to go out and find the funds to make it happen. But when you're talking about overtime, when you're talking about extra pay, when you're talking about all those things, the marathon will gladly pay for those. And I'm telling you that other organizations would too if they understand what it takes to do it. So I say, open up the door, tell them that they can have it, tell them what the costs are, and let them go out and have it.
Anybody else want to chime in on this one? Want to move on to another question? Okay, let's move on to another question. Dan Awesome, you'll have the first take on this one. It's been brought out by candidates and by citizens that transparency is important to many citizens of Ottawa. How will you, as mayor, inform the voters of proposals being discussed and what information you are using to determine how you will vote before it is voted on at council meetings?
So the city of Ottawa is a commission form of government. There's 4 commissioners and the mayor. We each have a department, and I'm in charge of community development, economic development. We got water and wastewater, finance, parks and streets, and public safety. Each one of those commissioners that's in charge of that, that's their job, to meet with the staff at City Hall and plan whatever's going on in their particular department. Periodically, usually I try to do every other week. I'll do an email to the city council to give them updates on what's going on, whether with economic development or different plans. And a lot of times people will respond back and ask questions about that, or sometimes it'll be an issue that the response back is that they really don't want to pursue that type of thing. So we we don't do it. But as far as true transparency, I mean, I've always been an advocate for it. Back when I was an agent with the ironworkers, it was difficult to get information from elected bodies. The Freedom of Information Act is great. We took that to the next step. All of our meetings are on the website. All of the documents are on the website. We live stream the Plan Commission, Zoning Board, and City Council. And the last thing I want to mention is that during the last term with Mayor Eschbach, the city held 22 workshops in addition to the regular city council meetings. The last 4 years, we've had 15 workshops, but we also had COVID that shut down the capability of doing those workshops. So I don't think there's been a big change in transparency. It's just a new buzzword. Thank you.
Len Newell.
Transparency means working openly and honestly with people. It is about both integrity and ethics. The benefits of transparency are increased engagement, fewer barriers to innovation, enhanced service to the community, increased employee engagement. Transparency creates an atmosphere in which you can share ideas and learn to give and receive constructive feedback. I think at times our elected officials don't work for us, our constituents' best interests. I feel like they don't inform us when they're going to do certain things. The elephant in the room right now would be having 55,000 square feet of chemicals that they want to store at the Southtown Mall. And I don't think anybody knew about it. And their reasoning for that was that nobody was against it. Nobody opposed it. Well, I call BS on that because I think nobody knew about it.
Rob Hasty.
Well, I think there's a bit of misinformation as to what transparency is. It's not a hyperlink on a website after the decisions are being made. If you go back to when the bump outs of the curbs were happening, there was a lot of meetings with downtown businesses and with building owners to determine how it was going to look, where it was going to look. Things were moved, things were shifted. There was a number of meetings. When you looked at the Court Street project, the business owners there got a letter 2 weeks beforehand telling them that it was going to happen. And that's not transparency. Moving forward, to answer that part of the question, what I would like to see is more community involvement that can be done by town hall meetings. They can be about something particular, or it can just be on a quarterly basis of opening up city hall doors and letting people come in and voice their opinion, give us their ideas, let us know what they're thinking. I think that would go a long way to dispelling this idea of transparency or lack thereof and allow us to be able to move forward working together. I think that would be important.
Anybody else have any more you want to say on this? Dan?
Yeah, the only thing I would mention is that the city council meets at least twice every month. Very seldom do people show up. As far as the Southtown Mall, every resident got a letter telling them what was coming up for zoning change. They were told that there was going to be a plan commission meeting. The plan commission heard all the facts, reviewed it. It's a warehouse. It's not a chemical manufacturing facility. It's a warehouse with packaged materials. I've toured the place. I have no issues with it. The fire chief was with me, a couple of the commissioners. I believe all of the commissioners have toured it. The owners of Lots Logistics live right next door to it. Ryan has 2 small children. There's no way that he would put his family at risk if he thought there was any issue at all with storing sand in empty buckets. And I think Tom Gainer mentioned is about 500 square foot of storage of the permanganate. It was open. The only reason this became an issue is of an unfortunate incident at the manufacturing facility in LaSalle, but that's not what we have here. We're storing bulk materials, and it was open. And the people that showed up at that plan commission meeting, their concerns was how many trucks were going to be coming by. Are they going to park overnight? Nobody had any issues with, and the chemicals were listed, what was going to be there.
Rob Hasty, you want to come in on this again? Or?
No, I think I think the mayor was accurate in what he said there. And furthermore, it's important for people to realize that those chemicals are going to different municipalities. They've been going to different municipalities all the time. They're driving, when they go to the Ottawa Waterworks, it's the same amount. It's a very small amount of chemical that's being stored there, and it's being done so in a way where it's protected. And I do think that it's unfortunate that was blown out of proportion by a tragic event at the next town over.
Lynn?
Can I see a hand of anybody who received a letter about this? So one guy, two guys? Okay.
Yeah, everybody did. It was in the water bill.
I probably didn't pay enough attention to it. I guess I just pay them. I guess my problem with it is I think a lot of people didn't know about it, and I think our elected officials should be more protective to us, whether we're elderly or younger. I mean, that place is right in the middle of a Little League diamond, 3 schools, girls fast pitch, a park, a Pony League diamond, youth soccer at a church, not to mention a grocery store, and an urgent care facility. It was a mall, and I don't believe that storing chemicals there is the right thing to be doing when we want to bring in tourists to our community and try to get them to spend their money and time here. If anything happens there, it's going to kill all that other stuff. So I adamantly disagree with it, and I would never have done it, and I want them out of town as fast as we can get them out of town.
You else want to chime in on this one? Two questions.
The only thing
left.
I'd say is there's a group of dedicated people that serve on the Plan Commission. I served on it before, Commissioner Gainier, Commissioner Less, former Mayor Eschbach. You're volunteering your time, and you spend a lot of time going through the research to go whatever plan's coming before you. They're not evil people. They're good people. They're your neighbors, your citizens, and they looked at all the facts and said that it was appropriate. I will tell you that we did not change the zoning because we did not want to have the issue that once the warehouse would leave, that anything could go in there. That's why we did a conditional use permit. So they received a conditional use permit. The recommendation was from the Plan Commission, and the same with the City Council. We're not doing anything evil. We listened to the recommendation from the Plan Commission. We read the facts, and we approved the conditional use. And unfortunately, I don't think you'd be able to change those conditional use permits without a big legal battle.
Anybody else have anything? Lynn, you want to say something?
I think part of the problem is big corporations like Karis tend to pollute areas, and then they don't have to pay to clean it up. We have super funds come in to clean stuff up. Like we just got the last $90 million to clean up the last radium dial site in town. And now we actually have a downtown that's thriving, tourism coming through, and now we're going to take and risk everything we have going for us for Karis Chemical, and I don't understand what we are going to get out of it. Like, what revenue are we making off of it? Like, what is the bonus, like, big pot of gold for all of us, for us to have that risk right in our community?
Anybody else have anything on this one? You want to move on?
I think the risk is minimal. And to start with, Karis Chemical didn't have anything with the negotiations. The owner of the mall approached the city. Lots Logistics is a company that works for Karis, but everything was up in the open. It was done above board. There is no risk. And Lenny, if you want to take a tour of the place, I'll set it up. They're more than willing to have people come through and look at it. I think when you see it firsthand and see the quality of the system that's set up, the technology, It's 24-hour, 365 monitored at the police station. It's a very safe and secure area. I would think you'd probably, when you go to the hardware store or Walmart or Farm or Fleet in the summertime, there's pallets of chlorine sitting around too. Should we ban all that? I mean, I just think everybody's just blowing everything way out of proportion. It's a product that we put in our water to treat the water, and it's governed by Homeland Security. I mean, it's not the big risk that everybody's trying to make it out to be. It's just election time.
Right. We have.
And the only thing I'll add is, if you want to know what the pot of gold is, it's clean drinking water. I think that's important.
Right. We have 2 questions left. Let's move on and finish these off, since it's we were shooting for about 8:30, but with only 2 questions left, I think we can get them on the table here.
Oh no, it's 8:30.
Len Newell, you have the first shot at this one. What are your thoughts on the proposed Riverfront Development Project? What is your vision and development of that project in our community, and how would you arrange for long-term funding of events?
Well, I think if we develop the downtown area along the riverfront, we need to take account for everyone in mind when we do it. I don't think we want to limit it to where normal people aren't even there. Like some of the plans I see, I don't think that's for citizens of Ottawa. I feel like it's a plan more for other people. And I think if you're going to build an amphitheater, if you run the amphitheater correctly, you should be able to make money. So I have no doubt in my mind, with connections and people I know, that you could run that amphitheater, make money, and pay for all of it. But it's got to be the right setup. I mean, you can't have it where it will flood, because you can't have some huge act coming in and you lose out on all your down payment for it. All your money that you were planning on making is gone because, act of God, flood. So it's just got to be the right situation, in my opinion, and it needs to encompass a plan that lets everybody be involved in it, not just a limited few people that aren't really citizens right now. Just like I don't understand why we care about the Southtown Mall from some guy. Like, does the guy who owns it even live here? Like, why are we catering to a guy who doesn't even have a vote, who doesn't even care about the community, probably doesn't even live in town? I don't know who he is, but whatever.
Rob Hasty.
So in regards to the riverfront development, I think one of the most important things to take in mind is that we're building it with a purpose, that we don't start building just an amphitheater just to have one. We need to know ahead of time how it's going to be used. There are, as Brent Barron mentioned on Friday night, there's 2 plans for the riverfront development. I'm in favor of the one that allows it to stay open to the public 6 days a week, 7 days a week. I want the one where anyone can go down there, do yoga, have summer theater, walk their dogs, walk through an arboretum, all the things that are in there. However, I want to make sure that we're building it with a purpose. And what I mean by that is, if you look at other parks like Millennial Park in Chicago, you can take that amphitheater that's open to the public and you can close it for special events. If we build it in that manner so that we can close it for special events, then at that point, we can make a ticketed event. If we have a ticketed event, we get a tax on that. We can also tax beverages and food. So the people who are coming in for that special event on that day, the tourists that we all talk about, they're helping to supply tax that can pay for the further renovation of the riverfront development and our other communities. I think by doing that, we're not just adding a tax burden for other people's entertainment, we're reinvesting in ourselves. And I think that's a big difference of planning for something before we build it. And I think once we do, it's going to be a great asset for everyone in the city.
Dan Awesome.
Okay, designing for the amphitheater should start this spring. Construction on the renovations at Allen Park should also start this year. We're also looking at options to build permanent mooring structures for the Princess Queen riverboat. We're going to improve the docking area for the St. Genevieve, and then we'll market the property to potential developers. And I was a little frustrated listening to the candidates Friday night. There's a new comprehensive plan that was done in 2022. There's not two of them. The 2016 plan was designed to be built on a city street that has water, sewer, gas, electric, lots of infrastructure going through it. It would cost $4 million to move that street, and there was deed restrictions. They also showed development going on the parking lot that's being used by IVCC's satellite campus, and also on top of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. That's not acceptable. The 2022 plan told the architects that when we told you we wanted you to develop something for the Central School area, you should have done it on the Central School area, not on the property to the north of the Central School. But it will take interest from developers that want to come in, and they'll have ideas on what they want to do, and hopefully it'll fit with our the 2022 comprehensive plan that we have. I think that we've got an excellent opportunity. Ever since the Y broke ground, more property has been selling downtown. There's a lot of interest in our community, and it's going to be fun to watch the growth.
All right. Let's go to one final question for the evening. Rob, you have the first take on this one. The city of Ottawa can legally use eminent domain to acquire properties for infrastructure improvements, such as sewer and water, but also for economic development projects. How would you, as mayor, utilize eminent domain?
I would first say extremely cautious. I think it's a rare moment when it would have to come to that. There's a bidding process that's involved. There's courts that are involved. It's not simply just the city coming in and taking someone's land. I would be extremely. I don't think it'd be hard for me to imagine a situation where we would have to do something like that, because I would hope that you could find a different avenue, have some kind of a negotiation as far as other plans if that particular plan doesn't work. But at the end of the day, in my opinion, it should be an absolute last resort, and we have a state government that kind of assures that it's going to be.
Dan Awesome?
Yeah, I agree with Rob. I've been on city council 16 years. We've never used eminent domain. It is a tool that's out there. It does maybe help us with negotiations, but usually when we're putting in a sewer or water project, most of the time we don't need the property, we just need an easement. When we negotiate those terms, I remember there was one where we felt that the property values were lower than what the owner had wanted. However, he was able to show us that he had originally owned that with a partner, and he bought his partner out 2 years before, and this was the price he paid. He didn't have a problem with us getting the easement. He just wanted us to pay the same fee that he paid. And of course, with that information, we agreed to it. But I was surprised when I saw this was going to be one of the topics, because we've never used eminent domain in the 16 years I've been here anyway.
Len Newell?
If I was to use any eminent domain, it would be very cautious. I don't really believe in taking people's land. It would have to be for a major infrastructure project, like a second bridge across the Illinois River, something like that, where you have to. But I don't believe in eminent domain in certain reasons because it's just not going to work out good for the individual that you're taking the land from. Most people that have their land want their land and they don't want to give it up if they don't believe it's a good enough cause for the rest of the community. Then put yourself in their shoes if that was your land.
Very good. Relax for a moment, catch your breath, and we'll get to the final comments. I think you'll all agree with me. This has been an excellent exchange. Give these guys a hand. All right, final comments. We'll start with Dan Awesome, 2 minutes.
All right, I want to thank the Ottawa Chamber, Central School, and WCMY for hosting this event. Thanks also to the citizens for attending tonight and watching online. I believe we should continue to improve our infrastructure, tourism, and recreation. The city has partnered with the YMCA to build a new state-of-the-art facility that should be open in 2024. Nell's Woodlands, a 56-acre nature park and trail system, is scheduled to open later this year. Dayton Bluffs is expanding by 16 acres to include 2 fishing ponds and 2,000 feet of riverfront. In addition, an ADA accessible bridge will be constructed to allow access for everyone to enjoy the beautiful views overlooking the Fox River. Continued marketing of our commercial and industrial sites, creating well-paying careers and revenues, such as the Coogee Chemical Plant, a $50 million investment in the industrial park, and potential expansion at PetSmart and Sega North America. We need to continue the increased funding for pavement of streets and alleys. We also intend to continue the next phase of the downtown parking improvements, which will increase parking on Madison Street and the Columbus Street parking lot. The new Southside Fire Station is currently in design process. We are also exploring locations for a 3rd station on the north side. We need to work with the firefighters and the police officers to ensure that they have the most up-to-date training and equipment available for the health and safety of the citizens. I am proud of what we accomplished over the last 4 years and excited for the opportunity to continue to improve the quality of life for our citizens. I am confident that we can continue the improvements that make the City of Ottawa a great place to live, work, and play. I'm asking for your vote on April 4th because experience matters.
Lynn Newell.
So, I'm a baseball coach. I went to college. I'm set up for this job. I believe in protecting our youth and our elderly and the entire community and informing our residents before we make any hasty decisions.
Is that on purpose?
Not really. Everything I've invested in my campaign has been my own money, except for several small amounts from family and friends. I don't owe anybody anything. I coach baseball because I like to coach baseball. I live in this community because I like the community. I simply want what's best for the community. I don't know if we're being represented in the proper way right now, and that's why I decided to run. I'm trying to earn everyone's vote the best I can. When I go around door to door talking to people, I get very good feedback. I think sometimes there is opposition to some of the change that could go on in the community that would be good for everybody, and people don't even hear about it. But when I walk around and talk to people, I hear things. I heard that there was a possibility of a soccer club moving into the golf course, Dayton Ridge. It didn't work out. I heard a lacrosse club from Aurora wanted to possibly move in there and that the city wouldn't even work with them. I feel like that would have been good for our hotels, good for the kids who have never even been introduced to lacrosse. So I just think that we could be represented better, and that would be for the people and all the people. Vote Len to win for everyone.
Rob Hasty.
I would again like to thank the Ottawa Area Chamber of Commerce for organizing tonight's forum. I'd also like to thank the other candidates for agreeing to participate. For those who may be deciding on who to vote for, I want you to know that I am not simply an opposition candidate. I'm also a candidate with aggressive ideas on how to move this city forward, and I plan to do so while remaining fiscally responsible. We will dream big, but we will not rush to spend. I will make sure that Ottawa moves forward with a comprehensive vision for the future when developing the riverfront, the I&M Canal, our city pool, and other improvements. I will focus not only on improving our quality of life, but also lay the foundation for economic performance and sustainability. I have the vision to lead with purpose, and I plan to do so with community input and true transparency to avoid any stigma of favoritism. And I assure you that together we'll continue to have a city that you can be proud of. Last, I'm not up here tonight simply asking for your vote. Whether it's in the following weeks or on April 4th, when you do cast your ballot, it's my hope that I've also earned your trust. And with that in mind, my name is Robert Hasty, and I'm running for the mayor of Ottawa. Thank you.
And I would like to thank all three of the candidates. I want you to know when you're up here on stage looking out with the lights in your eyes, it is a lot harder than you think it is to sit up here and act cool and collected. So if I could have one more round of applause for our candidates who came out. With that, I also want to thank everybody in the audience who came here tonight. At the peak, we had 179 here in attendance and 195 on our live stream. So we had an amazing turnout of people who wanted to see what these candidates had to say. They wanted to evaluate their options, and they want to be informed when they cast their vote on April 4th. So that is what we need in Ottawa, is dedicated voters who are interested in the topics at hand. With that, I do want to thank a couple of people. Julia Peterson is in the back running our live stream. We also have thanks to OES and Central School for the use of their great facility here. We need to thank Jay LeSueur for being our moderator. And our public policy group, they were the ones that solicited all these tough questions. I'll give you a little secret. If you send us a question and it can be answered yes or no, we're not going to let these guys off that easy. We don't have yes or no questions. We're going to make people think and discuss topics that affect the city of Ottawa. So that's how we came up with long questions, hard questions, and questions that make our candidates think. So we appreciate them coming out. I appreciate everyone that's here listening and on the live stream. You can go to the Chamber of Commerce YouTube channel and find it. We have links posted. You can play it as much as you want. So with that, thank you, and please take care and drive safely on your way home.